Did you know that some of the most dangerous habits we carry into our golden years don't look dangerous at all? In fact, they're often things we do every single day without a second thought, little routines that feel harmless, even comforting, but are silently chipping away at our health, our energy, and yes, even our time left on this earth. I'm not talking about skydiving or eating a slice of birthday cake now and then. I'm talking about the slow, sneaky things that many of us over 60 have been doing for decades, things that have become so normal we don't even question them anymore. But here's the truth. If we want to live longer with more vitality and less pain, we have to stop doing these things starting now. You might be thinking, at my age, does it really make a difference? And I'm here to tell you, absolutely it does. I've seen it in myself, in friends I've known since Woodstock, and in neighbors who made small changes and ended up with years of renewed strength, sharper minds, and a whole new lease on life. You see, aging doesn't mean giving up. It means getting smarter. The good news is, many of these harmful habits are reversible. But first, we have to shine a light on them. This video isn't about scaring you. It's about empowering you. Because once you know what's really going on behind the scenes of your daily life, you can make the kind of changes that lead to more time with your grandkids, more mornings, where your joints don't scream at you, and more peace of mind when the doctor reads your lab results. I've walked this road myself. Back in my late 60s, I was on 5 medications, waking up exhausted and feeling like my best days were behind me. But once I started paying attention to the small things, the habits I'm going to share with you today, I started to feel like myself again. Not like I was 30, let's be real, but like I was finally living in a body that worked with me instead of against me. So let's start with one of the most underestimated culprits, sitting. Yes, sitting. Our generation grew up with the idea that rest was the reward after a hard day's work. You plopped down in your recliner with a cold drink and the evening news, and that was normal. But now, science is calling sitting the new smoking. Think about that for a second. Prolonged sitting, especially when it's hours in front of the TV or at the kitchen table doing puzzles or scrolling through your phone, actually increases your risk of heart disease, diabetes, and even dementia. Our bodies were built for movement, not for being parked like an old Buick in the garage. Now, I'm not saying you have to start running marathons at 75, but we've got to break up those long stretches of stillness. A study from the American Heart Association found that even light activities like standing up every half hour, walking slowly around the house, or doing a few stretches can dramatically lower your risk of early death. And let me make it personal. My friend Harold, who's 82 now, used to spend his whole day in his armchair watching reruns and reading the paper. He'd complain about his legs feeling heavy and his back hurting all the time. His doctor told him to set a timer for every 45 minutes to remind him to stand up and move, even if it was just a lap around the living room. It sounded silly to him at first, but after a few weeks of doing it, he said, "You know, I'm sleeping better, my knees don't ache as much, and I feel more alert." It wasn't magic. It was movement. It's not about becoming a fitness buff. It's about not letting gravity win. So here's a gentle challenge for you. The next time you find yourself sitting more than an hour, stand up, stretch, walk to the window, or do a little dance, even if it's just with your arms. Your heart, your brain, and your bones will thank you. And if you're in a wheelchair or have mobility issues, don't think this doesn't apply to you. Even upper body movement, breathing exercises, or shifting positions can have a powerful impact. The key is breaking the stillness. We've got to stop pretending that rest means being motionless. Rest can still involve gentle movement. It can mean moving with intention. So if you've been sitting for a while, maybe even while watching this, now's a good time to pause and stretch. Go ahead, I'll wait, because that small act, that's you taking control. That's you choosing life, and that's just the beginning. There are 4 more daily habits that are just as dangerous and just as fixable. Coming up next, we'll talk about the one thing many of us do every morning that seems harmless, even responsible, but is quietly damaging our bodies day after day. Trust me, I used to do it too. Now, let's talk about that second habit. It's something so many of us were taught to do as a sign of maturity and discipline, and it plays out in kitchens across the country every single morning like clockwork. Reaching for that bottle of pills and swallowing a handful of medications before you've even had breakfast. Now, before you panic or toss your prescriptions in the trash, hear me out. I'm not saying stop taking what your doctor has prescribed. But what I am saying is this: too many of us are over-medicated and we don't even realize it. Overprescription is a silent epidemic, especially among seniors. We're living longer, yes, but often with a medicine cabinet full of pills that interact with each other in ways that can sap our energy, fog our brains, upset our stomachs, or worse. When I was 70, I was on 8 different medications, 2 for blood pressure, 1 for cholesterol, 1 for sleep, 1 for acid reflux, and a few others I honestly couldn't even remember the reason for. I thought, well, this must be normal. This is just what getting old looks like. But then I started forgetting words mid-sentence, feeling dizzy when I stood up and losing my appetite. Turns out 3 of those meds were causing side effects that the other meds were trying to fix. It was a cascade effect. One thing led to another, and before I knew it, I was a walking pharmacy. It wasn't until I sat down with a new geriatric specialist, someone who actually took the time to look at my whole picture, that I realized how much of my daily discomfort was being caused by this chemical cocktail. We reviewed everything I was taking, checked for interactions, and found alternatives like dietary changes, gentle exercise, and natural supplements that helped me reduce my reliance on the pills. Within a few months, I had cut my medications in half, and I felt like someone had opened the curtains in my brain. I had more clarity, fewer side effects, and most importantly, a sense of control over my own health. And I know I'm not alone. My friend Rosa, a retired school teacher from Albuquerque, was on 5 medications for anxiety, arthritis, and insomnia. And it turned out 2 of them were causing her insomnia in the first place. Once she adjusted her treatment, she started sleeping through the night for the first time in years. So here's what I want you to consider. When was the last time you had a full medication review? Not a rushed refill appointment, but a real sit-down with someone who knows how drugs interact in older bodies. Pharmacists can often do this, and many Medicare plans cover it. Ask questions. Bring a printed list of everything you take, even vitamins and over-the-counter stuff. And don't let anyone brush you off with, "It's just what happens at your age." That's not good enough. We deserve better. Now, while we're on the subject of what we put into our bodies, let's talk about the third habit. And this one might sting a little, because it's something many of us find comfort in: processed foods. I'm talking about the microwave meals, the canned soups, the sugary snacks, the crackers, the cookies, even that healthy granola bar that claims to be good for your heart, but is packed with salt and sugar. Listen, I get it. Cooking isn't as easy as it used to be. Maybe your hands ache too much to chop vegetables, or you don't feel like cooking for one. Maybe it's just easier to open a can, heat it up, and call it dinner. I've been there. But over time, these convenience foods can wreak havoc on our health. They're loaded with preservatives, sodium, hidden sugars, and artificial ingredients that increase inflammation. And inflammation is the root of so many of the diseases that plague us later in life, from arthritis to dementia to heart disease. I remember a time when I was eating those frozen healthy meals every night, you know the ones, with the smiling seniors on the box and claims of low fat or heart smart. Well, I started tracking my sodium intake, and I was shocked. I was eating almost twice the recommended amount for someone my age. No wonder my ankles were swelling and my blood pressure was through the roof. The shift didn't happen overnight, but I started small, swapping out canned soup for homemade broth, using frozen vegetables instead of canned, and making simple meals like baked salmon with olive oil and lemon. Nothing fancy, just real food. And the difference was incredible. My blood pressure came down, I lost a bit of belly fat, and my energy came back. You don't need to become a gourmet chef. Just start by reading labels. If the ingredient list is longer than your grandchild's Christmas list, it's probably not doing you any favors. And if you need ideas for easy meals, stick around. I've got plenty to share in future videos. The point is, we've got to stop seeing food as just fuel and start seeing it as medicine. Every bite is either helping us or hurting us, and at our age, the margin for error is smaller than it used to be. So ask yourself, what's really in that quick snack you reach for every afternoon? Is it nourishing you or slowly wearing you down? These little choices add up, and I promise changing them doesn't have to be overwhelming. We've already covered some big shifts, breaking the sitting cycle and rethinking medication overload, and now we're adding mindful eating to the mix. But we're just getting warmed up. In the next section, we'll look at a habit that seems totally harmless, even responsible, but is quietly robbing us of joy, resilience, and years off our lives. It's one I struggled with more than I'd like to admit, and maybe you do too without realizing it. Let's keep going, because knowledge is power, and power is how we take our years back. Now let's get into a habit that doesn't come in a bottle or a box, but it might be the most toxic of all, and it's one we rarely talk about openly. I'm talking about chronic negativity, not just the occasional grumble about the weather, or groaning when the news comes on. I mean that slow, heavy curtain of pessimism that starts to hang over our daily lives as we age. It shows up in little ways, expecting the worst from our bodies, assuming it's too late to change, saying things like, "I'm just old," every time we forget something, or silently believing that the best years are behind us. And I get it. It's easy to fall into that trap when aches and losses start piling up. After all, we've been through a lot. We've said goodbye to friends, watched parts of our own independence slip away, and faced a world that sometimes feels like it's spinning too fast for us to keep up. But here's the thing, the way we think literally changes our biology. Studies from institutions like the Mayo Clinic and Harvard have shown that seniors with a more positive outlook on aging live up to 7.5 years longer than those with a negative mindset. That's not wishful thinking, that's science. When we constantly tell ourselves we're too old, too tired, too broken, our bodies respond accordingly, our immune systems weaken, our memory falters, and our motivation dries up. But when we shift that inner dialogue, when we begin to believe there's still purpose, still joy ahead, still strength in these bones, everything changes. I remember my neighbor, Mr. Chen, a retired engineer who lost his wife after 50 years of marriage. For a while, he barely left the house. He'd sit by the window and say, "What's the point?" But one day, his granddaughter asked him to help her build a model bridge for a school project, and something sparked in him. That one simple request pulled him out of the fog. He started tutoring kids in math, volunteering at the local library, and even joined a Tai Chi class at 81. He told me, "I thought my life was over, but it turns out I was just in intermission." That's the power of mindset. It doesn't erase our struggles, but it gives us a way to move through them with grace. And here's where I want to pause for just a moment and speak from the heart. If you've made it this far into the video, it tells me something important. You care about your health, your future, and you're open to learning. That right there puts you ahead of the curve. So if you're finding this helpful, I'd love it if you consider subscribing to the channel, not because of numbers or algorithms, but because this is our space. A space where we can talk honestly, share wisdom, and support each other in living our best years, not just surviving them. When you subscribe, you're not just clicking a button. You're joining a community of people who believe that age is not a limitation, but a perspective. And every week, I'll be right here with more insights like this, from one senior to another, with no fluff and no nonsense. Now let's keep going, because we've still got more ground to cover. The next habit that's quietly hurting us? Poor sleep hygiene. And no, I don't mean whether or not you change your pillowcase. I'm talking about the way we sabotage our rest without realizing it. Sleep is one of the most powerful medicines we have, and yet so many of us treat it like an afterthought. We stay up too late watching TV, fall asleep in the recliner with the lights on, or wake up at 3 a.m. and reach for our phones. But sleep isn't just rest, it's repair. During deep sleep, our brains clear out toxins, our cells regenerate, and our bodies rebalance hormones that keep our weight, mood, and memory in check. Without good sleep, everything falls apart. I used to think waking up 5 times a night was just part of aging. Oh, that's just how it is when you're older, I'd say. But then I started tracking my habits. I realized I was drinking caffeine too late in the day, eating dinner too close to bedtime, and falling asleep with the TV blaring. I made a few changes: no screens after 8 p.m., a short walk after dinner, and a wind-down routine with soft music and a book. Within 2 weeks, I was sleeping through the night more often than not, and my energy during the day improved dramatically. My friend Darlene, who's 78 and has battled insomnia for decades, swears by lavender oil and a warm bath before bed. For someone else, it might be blackout curtains, a white noise machine, or cutting back on afternoon naps. The key is respecting sleep as sacred, not just something to squeeze in, but something to protect. If you're waking up tired every morning, don't just shrug it off. Start observing your habits. Are you giving your body the cues it needs to shift into rest mode, or are you confusing it with blue light, late-night snacks, and anxious thoughts? Even a few small tweaks can make a world of difference. And if you're dealing with sleep apnea, or restless legs, or other conditions, talk to your doctor. Don't just accept poor sleep as your new normal. You deserve better. So now we've covered 4 powerful habits: too much sitting, medication overload, processed foods, and the twin thieves of negativity and poor sleep. And believe it or not, there's still one more. One final daily habit that's often overlooked, but may be the most important of all. It's something deeply human, something we all crave, whether we admit it or not, and when we don't have it, our health suffers, physically and emotionally. In the next section, we're going to talk about the surprising power of connection and how loneliness, yes, loneliness can be as deadly as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. Stick with me, because this last one might just change the way you look at your daily life and your future. Let's talk about something that doesn't show up on a lab test, doesn't require a prescription, and yet has an impact on our health that's as real and measurable as high blood pressure or cholesterol. Loneliness. I know it's not a word we like to say out loud. It makes us feel exposed, maybe even ashamed, like it's a personal failing. But here's the truth. Loneliness is not a reflection of your worth. It's a reflection of your needs as a human being. And those needs don't disappear when we hit 60 or 70 or 90. In fact, they intensify. Because as we age, the social circles we once relied on, co-workers, neighbors, friends we met through our kids, they start to shrink. People move away, retire, pass on. And if we're not intentional about building new connections, we can find ourselves slowly drifting into a kind of quiet isolation that feels normal until it starts to hurt, and the hurt is real. Studies from the National Institute on Aging have shown that chronic loneliness increases the risk of heart disease, stroke, depression, cognitive decline, and even early death. Let me repeat that, and not just sadness, but actual physical decline. Being lonely doesn't just feel bad, it is bad. I had a friend, Carlos, who used to be the life of the party, always organizing barbecues, poker nights, you name it. But after his wife passed and his kids got busy with their own lives, he stopped reaching out. "I don't want to bother anyone," he'd say. "Everyone's got their own problems." So he stayed home more and more, watched TV in silence, and convinced himself that this was just how it goes. But over time he lost weight, his memory got foggy, and he became withdrawn. His doctor thought it might be the start of early dementia, but it turned out he was just lonely. When his daughter moved him into a senior community, everything changed. He started taking part in game nights, joined a walking group, even taught a cooking class using old family recipes. And wouldn't you know it, his mood improved, his appetite came back, and his memory sharpened. All because he was back in connection with people. Now, I know not everyone has access to a bustling senior center or a big family nearby, but connection doesn't have to be complicated. It can be as simple as calling an old friend, not texting, but actually hearing their voice. It can be smiling at the cashier and asking how their day is going. It could be joining an online book club or even leaving a thoughtful comment right here under this video. Because yes, even digital spaces can create real community. Loneliness thrives in silence, but it shrinks in the presence of even the smallest acts of reaching out. And if you're thinking, it's too late for me, let me stop you right there. One of the most inspiring people I've ever met was a woman named Lillian, who joined a watercolor class at 89. She said she hadn't made a new friend since her husband died 20 years earlier. But that class, it cracked her heart open again. She started hosting Sunday teas, sending handwritten notes to her grandkids, and even adopted a rescue cat she named Pickles. She laughed more in her 90s than she had in years. All it took was one brave step toward connection. And let me tell you something that might surprise you. Reaching out doesn't just help you, it helps others too. There are people out there right now who feel just as unseen as you might, who are waiting for someone to break the silence. Your kindness, your wisdom, your stories, they matter. They have weight, they have value, and they might be exactly what someone else needs to hear. So if you've been keeping to yourself out of habit, pride, or fear of being a burden, I invite you gently, lovingly, to reconsider. Because isolation is not a natural part of aging. It's a modern problem, and we can solve it with ancient tools, conversation, presence, and community. And this brings us full circle, doesn't it? All these habits we've been talking about, the sitting, the pills, the food, the mindset, the sleep, the loneliness, they're all connected. They feed into each other. If you sit too long, your mood drops. If your mood drops, you eat worse. If you eat worse, you sleep worse. And if you sleep worse, you don't have the energy to reach out and connect. It's not about blaming ourselves. It's about noticing the patterns. Because when we start to change even one of these habits, it creates a ripple effect. You take a walk around the block and suddenly your joints feel looser. You sleep better that night. You wake up with the energy to call your cousin in Florida you haven't spoken to in years. That call lifts your spirits. You laugh for the first time in days. And that laugh, that's medicine, that's healing, that's life. So let's not underestimate the power of these adjustments. They're not trendy hacks or gimmicks. They're the foundation of a life well lived even, especially in our later years. We've spent decades building families, careers, homes. Now it's time to build something just as important, quality of life. Not just more years, but better years. Years with clarity, strength, connection, and peace. And in the final part of this video, I'm going to bring it all together. The habits, the insights, and most importantly, the transformation that's possible when we stop doing the things that are slowly killing us and start doing the things that bring us back to life. I'll also share a personal story that changed the way I see aging forever, something that reminded me that no matter how many candles are on the cake, we always have a choice. Stick with me. We're almost there. So, here we are, my friend. We've walked through 5 habits that may seem small on the surface, but over time, they can quietly steal our strength, our clarity, and even our years. But the real story here isn't about fear, it's about freedom. Freedom from the idea that growing older means growing weaker. Freedom from the belief that decline is inevitable. Freedom from letting these sneaky daily routines run our lives without our permission. When we step back and look at them together, the stillness of too much sitting, the fog of overmedication, the hidden dangers in processed foods, the weight of chronic negativity, the foggy nights of poor sleep, and the deep ache of loneliness. We start to see the pattern. These aren't isolated issues, they're threads in a web. And once we tug on even one, the whole thing starts to shift. You stand up more during the day, and your blood flows better. Your mind sharpens. That clarity gives you the motivation to review your medications. With fewer side effects, your appetite returns. You choose fresher foods, you sleep more deeply. You wake up with more energy to call a friend. That call lifts your spirit, and suddenly, life feels a little lighter. That's the power of integration. And let me tell you a quick story that brought this all home for me. A few years ago, I was sitting on a park bench watching my youngest grandson, he was about 6 at the time, running around with a paper airplane. It was nothing fancy, just a crumpled piece of notebook paper he'd folded into wings. But he was chasing it like it was the most important thing in the world. I remember thinking, when did I stop running? After things I cared about like that, not physically running, mind you, but chasing joy, chasing life. I'd gotten so used to managing symptoms and swallowing pills and watching the clock between doctor's appointments that I forgot what it felt like to be alive, not just existing, but living. And in that moment, I decided to stop accepting decline as my destiny. I went home and started changing one thing at a time. I stood up every hour, I cleaned out my pantry, I asked my pharmacist to go over my meds, I gave myself permission to dream again. And it wasn't some overnight miracle, but slowly, day by day, I started feeling like me again. And so can you, because it's never too late. Whether you're 60 or 90, whether you're managing arthritis or bouncing back from surgery or simply wondering where the time has gone, there is still time to change your habits and reclaim your health. So here's a simple framework to remember these 5 habits: move, review, choose, renew, and connect. Move your body, review your medications, choose real food, renew your mindset, and connect with others. 5 words, 5 choices, 1 powerful transformation. And now I want to ask something of you, not just for me, but for you. If this video spoke to you in any way, if it sparked a memory, a realization, or even a little hope, please take a moment to like the video and subscribe to the channel. It's not because it helps me grow, but because it helps you stay connected to a growing circle of people just like us, thoughtful, seasoned, wise folks who still believe in better days ahead. And leave a comment down below. Tell me which of these habits hit home for you. Are you planning to stand more during the day, rethink your nightly routine, or maybe, just maybe, pick up the phone and reconnect with someone you've been thinking about? I read every comment and I respond when I can, because this isn't just content to me. This is community. This is purpose. And you, yes, you are a part of it. Don't wait for the right time to make a change. The right time is now. Not because you're running out of time, but because you deserve to enjoy the time you have. You've earned that. With every wrinkle, every scar, every lesson learned the hard way, you've earned the right to feel good in your body, to feel peace in your mind, and to feel connection in your heart. So let's keep going together. There's more coming. In the next video, we'll dive into simple daily movements that keep your joints young and your heart strong, even if you haven't exercised in years. I'll show you a few tricks I use every morning to stay limber and energized. And trust me, if I can do them, you can too. So hit that subscribe button and ring the little bell so you don't miss it. Until then, take care of yourself the way you'd care for someone you love, because you are someone worth loving. And I'm so glad we're on this journey together.